Hey everyone, back with another fan, and this time I picked up this Ritz made by Tat from a thrift store in West Allis, technically on the border of near New Berlin, so out west of West Allis. Well, actually, there's a thrift store called 3-in-1 Thrift, and it's like at the very west end of West Allis, just before heading into New Berlin. But yeah, I couldn't believe something like this even turned up. This old would have turned up at a thrift store, and that was actually something kind of decent and vintage and cool. Well, this Tat here, this Ritz Tat, actually has a cast iron spinner motor in it, which also I find a little unusual with a ball socket, and I'm starting to question if that's the canopy that came with it and the downrod and ball mount. No mounting bracket, so I just used one. I just robbed one. But yeah, usually cast iron stuff was either J-hook or claw mounted. But yeah, but in other words, this also is the addition of Sloth Love Chunk, as Chandru likes to put it. And I get why he calls it chunk cast iron. So I got it set to low. I've discovered a failed capacitor in it. So I had to like rummage around for one and make something work that got me equally the value of the main value, because there's two capacitors in there. There is a so this is capacitor-based speed control. That's one thing to know. So you're getting a nice low here. Definitely very restaurant low-like, I like to call this. So there is a capacitor in there with two values, and that's controlling the low and medium speeds. And then there is a smaller single value that I think is the main value, so which is what was failing on high. So this is just like a lot of the 90s hunters, a lot of like the low profile and the studio series, all those older summer breezes, they all did that same thing where you had a main value and two other values to basically get you your three speeds. So here is watts, about 11 watts. Yep, and of course, beating the capacitor-based speeds. It's, yeah, power factor of 0.34. So you got a low power factor. All right, got the tachometer with me, as me and Dan like to do, to test the speed out. Let's see what this gives me. All right. That is 194 divided by 4 blades, and it's coming out at about 50 RPM. So yeah, it's a little faster than typically a record player is 33 RPM, the turntable, to play full lengths. But here, this is just slightly faster than that. Maybe actually, if I said 48.5, that's like almost 50 RPM. I said that's a little faster than those singles, those 45 singles, I should say. All right, since you could see on a GE vent antique brass, I decided to go with a tassel pull chain because it's very childhood. It's just very childhood. This is taking me back. I've seen lots of fans like this. I'm very sure I've seen a dozen of these Tats, which I have. Okay, so 0.44, that's a typical RPM, or not RPM, typical current draw for medium. I know 31 watts, over half a power factor. Let's tack this out. It's not a bad medium, a little slower medium. Okay, this is 434. I'll go with. For RPMs, 434. Divide by the number of blades, which is 4. And that's almost 110. It's given me 108.5, but I can round that up to 110 RPMs. And I'm also going to do, if that's Rick or Sheep. Hey, if the Rick or Sheep. Wonder if that's Rick down there. Could be Rick. All right. I did the watts and power factor. Let's bring it to high. Okay, so I know I looked at the top when I said earlier there was a failed capacitor. The main value was drifted down. I tested that out and I scrounged up a couple of capacitors to combine to equal the value of what I need it to be. So here it is. At high speed, I equaled 7.5, which is what the main value was in there. And the current rating on top did say 0.7 amps, so I'm getting pretty much that. Even a few hundredths over it is okay. That's fine. It's pretty much a ballpark. Okay, so 0.86 watts, and because it's a capacitor based and we're on high speed, it's a power factor of 1. Okay, so I'm going to tack this out again. Okay. Kind of speeding up, so I'm getting 797, I'm getting 798, so knowing my mental math on that, that's like rounded up to 800 divided by 4 blades. That's pretty much gets me like 199.5. I'll just round that up to practically 200 RPM, which is very typical for a residential. I'll call that. Okay, so now with high speed, I got the anemometer here, and I'm gonna get a rough CFM, see what I get out of this. Right now I'm feeling a very average amount of air. Rick or Sheep. Yeah, let's see if I can get. It's pretty typical. 393, 413. I got 413, so I mean the blade pitch is average as well. So this is a 52-inch fan. So I got 14.75 times 413. It's basically a little over 6,000 CFM. is what I'm getting. So, yeah. I mean, it's not a very high CFM, and in my older videos, me and Dan's older videos before calculating CFM, we just did a simple categorize of what we're feeling off of it, of whether it's like residential, typical residential spinner motor. He likes to say Hunter spinner motor, but I say typical stamped steel residential spinner motor, which is an average. Not a strong breeze, but a breeze. Then our next category would have been K55, K63 type motors, where Casablancas and Emerson's tend to give off more of a gust, a little more of a gust of wind, so a little higher CFM. And even Homesteads and Fascos and many others that use that type of motor, that K55 style motor. And then our top category of strongest airflow is Gold Line industrial type, where it's like a box fan right in front of you. So yeah, here is spin down. So right now this one is very average with the airflow. Not too much to write home about. Nothing too much to write home about, so. Good spin down though. So in the meantime, while it's spinning down, I'm gonna flip it and we'll do it in reverse. Rick or sheep? I'm going to say Rick or sheep as well. And I hear Rick out there. Okay, well, it's spun down. Now, I must mention, I should have shown, I said something earlier, but yeah, I flip the blades to the stencil side, but I think the stencil looks a little faded on these blades. I cleaned them up with liquid gold. They're just still, the stencil is rather dark. It might, yeah, just be kind of faded, so you really can't see the stencil as good as I'd like to. So, but that's just that. I wanted to try to bring it out as best I can, because I love stencil, especially seeing a lot of this stencil and cane in my childhood. Okay. Slightly higher current draw, but not really. See what it draws on medium. Okay, slightly lower current draw with medium. Interesting. Let's try high. Just seems slower, and interesting how it doesn't quite go as fast in reverse. So I'm betting, even though the speeds are capacitor based, it's definitely got a different, it's got to have a different motor coil tap. It just has to have a different motor coil tap, because I'm going to tack this one out. See what we're getting, because doesn't really want to. 606. Yeah, it's definitely quite slower in reverse. Interesting. 606 divided by 4 blades. Yeah, it's like 150 RPMs. Yeah, so this is definitely a different versus just reversing the polarity. I've ran into a few of these like this. So, yeah, this is definitely... All right. Well, now it is time to do the decade box. So let's see in microfarads. Let's see where this starts. 1, 2, not budged, and 3. No, it's might be a hair stiff. Try 4. Okay, there it goes. Okay, so yeah, it just might be a hair stiff, but nothing, not terrible. Okay, and maybe also being cast iron might have something to do with that as well. So 0.6, here's 5. Let's see what 5 is. So 0.2 might be, I mean, for 5 microfarads, this is a little bit on the slower side. This would definitely qualify as a restaurant low. This is very restaurant-like. I can just see this kind of fan in a pub. Like, not a fancy restaurant, but like, say, some bar pub or so, an old one, when they first were putting fans in a lot of places, like restaurants, even your more basic stuff. Here is 6. Okay, so 6 is a little closer to the factory low. But still, I get a restaurant, I call a restaurant low out of this as well. But I just love how it looks, seeing this GE vent, antique brass on low like this. This is taking me back as well. Okay, here is 7. Okay, so when I opened this up to check the capacitors out, I saw that the bigger capacitor that was multi-valued was a 7 and 14. So I'm on 7 right now, and this is matching the factory low, so that would make sense. This is the values they've chosen for it. And of course, but Dan's not here, and I'm gonna do 8 anyways. 8. Well, 8. Still a good low, slightly faster. And it's hard to say sometimes. You may want this kind of a low for practical, but here is 9. Okay, we're starting to get into medium low. 10. I'm gonna wonder what it's like at 15, because this might be a good 5, 10, 15 if you want that slower low, and then you get a medium low right here. That might work perfectly for that. Ricochet. Might be Rick out there. And here's 11. Might be a little slow for a 4, 7, 11. So here is, oh, since we're at 11, I gotta, you know what's coming. I'm gonna pick up on that as well, because we know why, because of what's coming. 12. 13. Okay, so we're really close to its factory medium, and I said the value in that multi-value capacitor that's in there for the speeds going in series with the main value here is 14. So this basically matches the factory medium right here. So it was kind of a slower medium, but you get a nice high. So here is 15. So yeah, you could use 5, 10, 15 on here. 6, 8, 14 would work perfectly as well. Here is 16. Yeah, so you could do that 7, 9, and 16. Here is 17. 18. 19. 'And here comes 20. So really, this definitely shows you could use an 8, 12, 20 on this fan. This actually has a good speed range with that. So Dan, this is a crunching fan as well. Just to show you, it's an 8, 12, 20 fan. Gives you a nice speed range. Okay, we're nowhere near high. So if I hit, definitely a difference, so yeah. One, 2, 25. I'm just going to go to 30, 35. Let's just max it out at 40 microfarads. Maxed out. And I hear Rick or Sheep out there. Rick or Sheep. And I maxed out at 40 and we're still under. So no resonant frequency. Very nice. Very nice. Okay, let's try solid state variable and let's check on how noisy or how quiet it is. Always hope for it to be quiet, but never know. Okay, so not silent. Ooh. This is falling on borderline. This might be high end of living room and starting to reach into noisy. At least in my mind for this type of fan. Maybe not. Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, it is on the noisier side of living room quiet. Because to me, bedroom quiet means almost silent, where I can sleep through it. Living room quiet is just a little bit louder than that. This is okay for living room, but if it's like in a meeting hall, maybe if you're going to have a dinner, like in a restaurant, it may not be a big deal. If it's, people are talking loudly, then I wouldn't mind that. But maybe in a church setting, that's questionable. All right. Okay, last test. Let's see what kind of inrush I get on this. Yeah, it does not look like any inrush at all. Maybe, I don't know if it's even gonna, yep, okay, it jumps up a very hair, but I think it stays around 0.73. And like I said, if you have the current rating on there is 0.7, but this does draw just a hair more, but I'm not worried about that. This is kind of, that last digit sometimes flops, but yeah, it's like questionable of even calling that an inrush or not. All right, well, it is time to show. Before I go, I gotta thank my sponsors, and of course my number one sponsor is of course PowerMate, because one motor for vacuuming isn't enough. You need two. You need two motors for vacuuming. And of course, the next one is, of course, Reese's Pizza. To be sure to eat your pizza. And of course, third sponsor, Jonas Organs and Doorbells, because they are marvelous and magnificent, just like House on the Rock is. And of course, I gotta also have Ricker Sheep be a sponsor as well, because Rick could be out here and it may be the sheep. And of course, with Reese's Pizza, gotta wash it down with the beverage of fan collectors of Sperry. Since not just Dan has Sperry, but myself, and Sperry is also sold at Fanimation for yes, a whopping price, because it's ridiculous and it's very good. So that's actually all the sponsors. Oh yeah, and for last sponsor I'm forgetting is my kid's obsession with learning that it's okay to have an interest in fans and vacuums and such, and that no interest is bizarre and strange. Other than that, that is all I have for this Ritz Tat GE vent tat. So I'll be back with more fans as I acquire them. See you next time. Keep on watching and subscribing.